Daniel wiped the sweat from his face as he parked his old motorbike under a small tree. It was another long, hot day in Lagos. The sun was going down, but his work wasn't finished. He had one more delivery to make, but his stomach growled with hunger and his back ached. Still, he smiled. Daniel had started his delivery business just 6 months ago. After graduating from the university with a degree in business, he searched for a job for almost a year. He applied to big companies, small offices, and even shops, but no one wanted to hire someone without experience. Tired of waiting and begging for work, Daniel used the only thing he had, his old motorcycle. It had been a gift from his late father. He cleaned it up, printed flyers, and told people in the area that he could deliver packages, food, and documents quickly and safely. At first, it was hard. Many people didn't trust him. He earned only a little money each day. But Daniel was patient and polite, and soon customers started calling him. He called his business Quick Ride Express. He even dreamed of growing it into a big company with many bikes and delivery staff. But for now, it was just him, his motorbike, and his hope. As he drank water from a sachet and checked the last delivery address on his phone, he noticed something strange ahead. A woman was standing by the side of the quiet, tarred road. It was a lonely stretch, with no houses nearby and only a few trees. The woman looked about 45 years old. Her dress was torn and her arm was bleeding. She waved her hand weakly, trying to stop cars, but none of them stopped. Most drivers just drove past her, too afraid or too busy to care. Daniel's heart beat faster. What happened to her? He asked himself. He looked at the food package in his delivery box. He was supposed to drop it off in 20 minutes. If he delayed, the customer might get angry and never call him again. But the woman looked like she was in pain. He took a deep breath. "God, please help me," he whispered, then kicked his bike back to life and rode towards her. "Madam, are you okay?" Daniel asked as he parked beside her. The woman turned slowly. Her eyes were full of tears. "Please help me," she said in a weak voice. "I think my leg is broken. I was pushed out of a car. I can't walk." Without wasting time, Daniel removed his delivery bag and took off his shirt. He tore part of it and used it to tie around her bleeding arm. Then he helped her sit gently on the back of his motorbike. She cried out in pain, but he told her, "Hold on, I'm taking you to the hospital." The ride to the hospital felt like forever. The road had bumps, and the woman groaned with each shake. Daniel rode as carefully and as fast as he could. His thoughts were racing. What if she fainted? What if he couldn't find help in time? Finally, they reached a private hospital. Nurses came running out when they saw her wounds. Daniel helped carry her inside. "Who is the patient to you?" a nurse asked. "I don't know her," Daniel replied honestly. "I just found her by the road and brought her here." "Do you have her ID or any money for deposit?" Daniel shook his head. The nurse sighed. "We can't treat her without a deposit." Daniel looked at the woman. She was breathing heavily, eyes slowly closing. He reached into his pocket and brought out everything he had, his rent money, his food money, everything. He placed it on the counter. "Please," he said, "take it. Just save her." The nurse nodded and rushed her into the emergency room. Daniel sat down on the bench, his hands shaking, his heart pounding. He didn't know her name, and he had lost a customer today, but he had done the right thing. Veronica slowly opened her eyes, the smell of antiseptic and the soft beep of hospital machines filling her nose and ears. Her body ached all over, especially her arm and leg. She blinked several times, trying to remember what had happened. It felt like a dream, no, a nightmare. Then it all came back. Earlier that day, Veronica had decided to go out alone. She was tired of staying in her mansion while guards and drivers followed her every step. Her husband, Charles, was away on a business trip in Abuja, and she just wanted to feel normal for a while. So she dressed simply, wore no expensive jewelry, and drove herself out in one of their less flashy cars. Veronica was a kind-hearted woman. Even though she was rich, she never looked down on the poor. On her way to the market, she saw a group of what looked like beggars sitting under a tree. They looked hungry and helpless. Moved by pity, she stopped the car and rolled down the window. "Good afternoon," she greeted gently. "Do you need food?" One of them, a young man with a sad face, nodded and stepped forward. But as he got closer, two others rushed at her door. Before she could react, they pulled the door open and yanked her out. One held a knife to her neck while the others shouted at her, "Where's your phone? Give us the keys!" She tried to scream, but they covered her mouth. They dragged her a few meters away from the road, beat her, and took her handbag. When they saw there was no cash or fancy phone, they grew angry. "Useless woman," one of them shouted, "wasting our time." Without warning, they shoved her roughly back toward the road. Her foot twisted as she fell, and she landed hard on the tarred ground. Her arm hit a sharp stone, tearing her skin. Her car was gone. The men had driven off, laughing as she lay helpless on the roadside. Veronica tried to stand, but her leg throbbed in pain. Cars passed by. A few slowed down but sped off again. She cried for help, her voice growing weaker each minute. Then, like a light in the darkness, a young man appeared on a motorcycle. He looked poor, his clothes were dusty and his shoes were worn out, but his eyes showed something different. He didn't ask questions, he didn't walk away, he simply helped her. Back in the hospital, Veronica turned her head slowly. A nurse entered the room and smiled. "You're awake," she said warmly. "How are you feeling?" "Sore," Veronica replied weakly. "Where am I?" "You're at Hopefield Clinic. A young man brought you here. He even paid the deposit." Veronica's eyes widened. "A young man?" The nurse nodded. "Yes, a delivery rider. He found you bleeding on the road and brought you here. He gave us everything he had so we could treat you." Tears filled Veronica's eyes. She couldn't believe it. A stranger had saved her life without knowing who she was. "Where is he?" she asked. "He's outside," the nurse said. "He didn't want to leave you alone. He hasn't eaten since he came." "Please, let him in," Veronica whispered. Moments later, Daniel stepped into the room, holding his helmet in his hands. He looked shy and worried. "Ma, I'm so happy you're okay," he said softly. "I'm sorry I didn't get you here sooner." Veronica smiled weakly. "You risked everything for a stranger. Why?" Daniel looked down. "I just couldn't leave you there, Ma. You needed help. That was more important than my job." She reached for his hand. "What is your name?" "Daniel," he replied. "Daniel," she repeated slowly, as if remembering the name for life. "You have a good heart. I don't know how to thank you." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't do it for thanks, Ma. I did it because it was right." As she rested again, Daniel stood to leave, unsure if she would ever remember him once she was well. He didn't know that outside the hospital, Veronica's husband had just arrived in Lagos and was searching for his missing wife with the help of the police. Charles Obianju was not a man who panicked easily. As one of Nigeria's richest businessmen, he had dealt with market crashes, betrayal from close friends, and even threats from rival companies. But nothing had ever shaken him the way his wife's disappearance did. When Veronica hadn't returned home by nightfall and her phone stopped ringing, Charles had tried not to overreact. Maybe her battery died, maybe she was stuck in traffic. But by the next morning, with no word and her driver confirming she'd left alone, Charles knew something was wrong. He filed a missing person report with the police and offered a large reward for any information. Security officers searched the routes she usually took, checked roadside CCTV footage, and even interviewed roadside traders. Days passed, no sign of her. Then a call came from a small private hospital, Hopefield Clinic. A nurse said a woman had been admitted after an accident. She had no ID on her, but now that she was awake, she had given her name, Veronica Obianju. Without a second thought, Charles dropped everything and drove straight to the hospital with 2 bodyguards. When he entered the room and saw his wife lying on the bed, bruised, pale, and hooked to a drip, his knees almost buckled. Veronica smiled weakly, and he rushed to hold her hand. "You're alive," he whispered, tears welling in his eyes. "I'm okay, Charles," she said softly, "thanks to someone special." He looked up. "Who?" She turned her head slightly and pointed to the door. Standing quietly near the window, unsure whether to stay or leave, was Daniel. "That young man," she said with pride in her voice, "he saved me. He risked everything to bring me here." Charles turned to look at Daniel. At first, all he saw was a poor delivery boy, worn slippers, dust-stained jeans, a tired face. But when their eyes met, he saw something more: integrity, bravery, kindness. "Please," Veronica said to Charles, "talk to him." Daniel stepped forward nervously. "Good evening, sir." Charles nodded. "Are you the one who found my wife by the roadside?" "Yes, sir," Daniel replied quietly. "She was hurt. Nobody stopped. I couldn't just leave her. I was told you gave the hospital money, even when you didn't know who she was." Daniel scratched his head. "It was all I had, sir, but I couldn't watch her suffer." Charles studied him for a long moment. "What's your name?" "Daniel Okafor." "What do you do?" "I run a small delivery business, sir. Just me and my bike. It's nothing big, but I'm trying." Veronica smiled from her bed. "He wants to build something special, Charles. He told me about his dream. He has ideas, but no support." Charles nodded slowly, then turned to his assistant. "Bring my briefcase from the car." Moments later, he opened the case and pulled out a contract form. "Daniel," he said, placing the papers on the table, "I'm offering to invest $1 million into your business." Daniel's eyes widened. He almost stepped back. "Sir?" he stammered.
"You didn't save my wife for money," Charles said. "That's exactly why you deserve it. Men like you are rare. You risked your job, your savings, your future to help a stranger. That kind of heart can't be bought." Tears rolled down Daniel's cheeks. He had imagined struggling for years to grow his company. He had seen himself delivering packages in the rain, fixing a broken bike, and begging customers for a chance. Now, everything was changing. "But sir," he said, trying to stay calm, "why me? So many people have big dreams." "True," Charles replied, "but not everyone has the courage to stop in the middle of their journey to help someone else with theirs." The investment came with more than just money. Charles connected Daniel with business mentors, helped him register his company officially, and got him an office space in Acadia. Within 6 months, Quick Ride Express had 15 motorbikes, 4 vans, a mobile app, and 10 full-time employees. News channels picked up the story. From delivery boy to CEO, how a kind act changed a life. On the day of the company's grand relaunch, Daniel stood at the podium in a new suit, his hair neatly trimmed, his voice steady. "I didn't do anything special," he told the crowd. "I just did what was right." From the front row, Veronica and Charles clapped proudly. As cameras flashed, Daniel looked up at the signboard bearing his company's new logo. What started with a motorbike and a broken road had now become a story of hope, honor, and a destiny rewritten by kindness. And though he never asked for anything in return, fate gave him everything he never thought he could have.